Hey everybody, this is Shack Central. I just wanted to take a couple of minutes and give a really brief update on a couple of POB things. As far as the build guide goes for this league, the video part is actually on Zizaran's channel. Was very fortunate and happy enough to do a build collab with him. So the general POB overview, some gameplay footage that I recorded, all of that is going up on his channel sometime today. And once that goes up, I will post this then afterward and link to that video in the description. So go check that out first, and then you can come back here for some more clarification. But it should just be a couple quick minutes to kind of clear up things that I've been asked since we recorded, and just to give a little bit more clarity moving forward with the build. So a couple of things that are the same for both versions. The number one thing you're probably going to have questions about is the DPS. So he talked about kind of the fact that it's higher than you may see as he scrolled through the POBs down here in the full DPS. That's because our third curse, we're using 3 curses now, is Punishment. And it's kind of an interesting curse. It actually has no effect at all during the first 50% of an enemy's life. They effectively have 2 curses on them instead of 3. However, once they get to 50% life, they start taking a crazy amount more damage. It is stupid how much more they take. What I really like about Punishment is, first of all, it's actually the highest, just flat out the highest DPS increase we can have for a third curse. The only other damage option for Cold Dot would be Despair, and this actually does more damage across the board. So to top that off, what I really like is, in general, single target fights get harder as they go on. As bosses lose health, they generally either gain more mechanics, they gain more damage. Sometimes they will phase and add new kind of features to their fight. So as enemies get lower health, we ramp up our damage, and it generally makes that last portion of a boss fight much, much more comfortable. So that's the reason why this DPS is so low. I have it unchecked by default. I try really hard not to do any kind of POB like inflation. So this is actually the DPS, for instance, in the low light version without Punishment on. And if you want to simulate that, all you have to do is go into the config and select is enemy on low life. So the first 50% of their life will be at 4.1 million. For the last half, look at the jump to 5.3. So this is a feature of both the SSF version and the low light version. Both of them use Punishment as a third curse. So if you want to see the difference between those, you can just check or uncheck this box. For general DPS calculations, I pretty much just went halfway between the two. It's not exactly accurate because they'll spend more time in the first half of their life. Like I said, because the DPS is lower, you'll spend more time in that first 50%, but the last 50% that's more comfortable, you'll kind of just wreck. It's kind of insane. So a couple of the other things, I've gotten questions about this in the Discord a bit. The DPS, or the ES totals, looking a little bit low, which is completely understandable. First of all, I want to point out, I have not accounted for the variable base types at all. So not only did I not put any energy from naught clusters in here in the low light version, but in general, the DPS, or the energy shield, looks lower than it will be, and even the armor too, on a couple of pieces, because that variable base type system will come into play. I've simulated them a couple times, and as long as you are, even in SSF, as long as you're using the base types that fall in that top, like say 20% range, like the 12 to 15% rolls on the variable base types, you're looking at a really solid 400 or higher energy shield boost. It's a very significant boost when you start using things like regalias. You start using other item pieces. If you're using those high end, they get the 5% boost from the patch notes, and then 12 to 15% on top of that, and it scales really far. So in reality, you're probably looking at something like a little bit under 8K for the low light version, and the SSF version should push up maybe even up to 8.5, 9. And again, the items in here are pretty low investment, so you can hit higher totals. But I also want to point out that more than just a pure ES total, it's a lot more about the effective health. So in 315, we actually had a pretty high ES total, but we were so much less tankier because we didn't have a lot in the way of physical mitigation. So when you look at the 315 version, the effective health pool and the max hit taken down here for fizz damage, in particular, was essentially just the energy shield pool. It had like no mitigation at all. Now we have a lot more. The 90% is not exactly accurate because that depends on the size of the enemy hit, but the point is you have a lot more straight up mitigation. We have a little bit more for elemental damage, but just a massive more for fizz. So taking out a little bit of the flat energy shield and gaining all of that armor and mitigation is absolutely worth it, especially for the CI version. One thing I want to point out that's really cool about the CI version is Divine Shield is really going to help mitigate a lot of successive small hits. You're going to gain a lot of regen if, say, you just have a pack of small enemies that are like white enemies that are just hitting you repeatedly. You're going to have a ton of regen from that. It's going to be nuts. On the flip side, to prevent one-shots, especially with a slightly lower ES pool, there's a couple of things here that are actually right next to each other. So the Sanctum of Thought lets you take 30% reduced damage from crits, so it's a lot of one-shot protection from critical strikes. And the Mastery here, which is not currently implemented in PoB, that's why it's red, but you defend with basically an extra 1/5 of your armor, pretty much, as long as you're not on low energy shield, which for the first hit in terms of preventing one-shots, you won't be. So those are going to be really nice for preventing one-shots. This is going to be really nice for preventing small hits. So it should be a very, very comfortable playstyle. The other one kind of general thing that I've been asked a lot about is Wintertide Brand. I've looked into it very minimally. It's not worth it currently. I'm sure there's ways that it could be made good, but with the amount of time that we've had as a PoE community so far, Wintertide Brand looks rough. The issue that I've always had with it is when you have to invest in brand nodes, those points have to come from somewhere. So investing in brand nodes makes the functionality a lot better, but either you're taking away points that are invested into scaling, or you're taking away points that are invested into defense, and that makes Wintertide Brand really rough. So I've stayed away from that completely this league. I may look into it at some point, but it won't be for any type of league start. Now, a couple of things that are specific to the different types of PoB, so either the trade PoB or the SSF. For trade, one of the biggest questions that I've gotten is about the skill choice. So previously we were on 3 skills. We still are in the SSF version, right? You're going to be using dual 4 or dual 5 links in your body armor, depending on your 5 or 6 link. For the trade league PoB, what I'm recommending this league is actually a change from anything I've ever recommended. This has always been traditionally the Vol Cold Snap slot in your Rhyme Gaze. However, Divergent Creeping Frost gains a projectile at 20% quality. If you can do that, if you can get your hands on one, they tend to be more expensive. If you can get your hands on one or even find one yourself in a Grand Heist, it's so good. You just get basically double the clear, and it goes even beyond that because this can leave up to 10 chilling areas behind. So the first 4 times, 5 times you shoot the extra proj, all of those chilling areas are still kind of creeping, literally, as the name suggests, literally creeping towards enemies to make that clear a lot better. However, until you get a Divergent Creeping Frost, or if you decide you don't like it, Vol Cold Snap is totally fine. The damage for between the two is actually almost a complete wash, which is really nice. Creeping Frost has a much higher DPS than regular Cold Snap, but obviously the Vol Cold Snap burst kind of makes up for that, and they end up being very similar numbers. If you want to see something really crazy, if you put Vol Cold Snap or Creeping Frost in as that dual, I should probably just type it. If you want to put either of these in as like that dual 5-link setup, the damage gets insane. Obviously, you have another button to press, but this is the damage without punishment. Like basically, our non-punishment damage goes higher than the previous version's punishment damage. I just prefer we can kill pretty much anything without that. So yeah, it's a pretty nutty version, but you can use either one, whichever one is kind of your personal preference. And then for the SSF version, for hardcore, the only thing I wanted to point out is the tree is still pretty good for leveling. I would just look at picking up maybe some more life nodes early if you can. Maybe like instead of going for Breath of Rhyme first, as one example, you just pick this up before you pick up Breath of Rhyme. Whereas in softcore, in softcore SSF this league, I'm probably not even going to take these early on. I'm probably just going to sprint up here and grab Breath of Rhyme as an example. So just be on the lookout for other ways to pick up life early on, especially with these masteries. They're insane. But that's pretty much it. Just bump my mic. Ziz did an amazing job of kind of summarizing the rest of the actual build, and he's going to be showing some gameplay. If you want to see the full gameplay video, I did put the example that I sent him. I put the full map. I did a Maven Witness T16 Phoenix. Put that on Twitch. The gameplay is kind of scuffed. The setup is kind of scuffed because the 316 changes aren't in there, right? The EE I actually unallocated, so we actually had a massive damage nerf. You can see that because the boss fight takes a while. I took off EE, and we're without the cold dot buffs. the gems were under-leveled, stuff like that. But it's a good example of, still Guardian map in under 4 minutes, even without EE. So it handled it really well. And one last thing that I was reminded of when I said that, if you want to see the changes, the reason we can even show this version in POB is because of this flask. So basically this just lists all of what's coming in 3.16 that's not currently in POB. So once the POB updates with all this stuff, we'll just take this flask out and make it a regular Quicksilver. But yeah, with that being said, I'm updating the written guide and the leveling guide today. All of these are kind of summarized in the Discord or on Twitter. I posted a really long tweet thread with kind of a summary of this today. But yeah, go check out Ziz's guide. He was an absolute pleasure to work with. It was really fun to see him kind of work on that. And yeah, I'm really happy with where this has gotten to. Cold Dot is stupidly strong in 3.16. I think if you give it a try, you're going to really like it, no matter which league you're in. But yeah, with that being said, I'll see you guys tomorrow for League Start. I'm Shaq Central. I'll catch you guys tomorrow. Bye.